if you can like really niche down, that's where you know that you've nailed it. One of our big breakthroughs was really focusing on music, and we just worked with like Sony a lot, and then we PR the fact that we worked with them, and then Warner will come along.
Interesting.
And then
that FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, look, so what's happening? When Warner come along, because it's driven by FOMO, the same thing you did from Sony, you charge double. Woo! And then Universal come along, and then the same thing I did for those two, you now charge triple.
Guys, you're gonna love this. Welcome back to our series here on YouTube called Business Success Stories. Today we've got a co-founder of a business called Fanbytes. TIMO has been running Fanbytes with its co-founders for just over 5 years, or five years thereabouts. And the business has done phenomenally well. I'm gonna be unpacking that. Just kind of really tell TIMO's story, not just the big numbers, and to be specific, Fanbytes turns over more than £10 million, is worth 8 figures, more than £10 million in valuation. Not giving any specifics, but giving you an idea. And the business has about 60 employees thereabouts, and it was only founded 5 years ago. Welcome to the
Thank you. Thanks.
So, do you want to just start off by telling us a bit about yourself? Like, just give us a bit about yourself and what exactly you do at Fanbytes.
Cool, yeah. So, start off first with Fanbytes. So I'm the CEO and co-founder, as you mentioned. So, and so on a day-to-day, really, like I have my heads of department and all that stuff who are talking to me about what's going on in the business. And I started Fanbytes in 2017 with my co-founder Ambrose and Mitchell. And what we ended up doing was our whole thing was like we wanted to be the place for brands to reach a Gen Z audience. And so we had spotted an opportunity in the market, and then we just ruthlessly executed on it. And the idea came to me because I had actually built and sold a media business before this. So I started a media company called Entrepreneur Express. It was at 17, and I built that company and I sold that business. And I realized that like what the acquirer was buying, because that business was like an online blog, basically like a business magazine.
So that first business that you sold, how long did it take for you to set it up, from setting it up, running it, and then selling it?
So that took me about 11 months.
11 months.
Yeah. Okay. So that was actually my second business, which is quite funny. That was my second business, but the first business that I sold. I'd done a business before that, which was very much like a tutoring business, but it was kind of the type of thing I was using to almost like learn about business. Right? Started that at 14, then I started Entrepreneur Express at 17. Yeah, and that whole journey was about 11 months. And it was like very fast, very quick. And
give us an idea of how much you sold it for, not specifics, but...
So for like low six figures.
Low six figures. In 11 months.
Yeah.
To be clear, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. And you said it was a blog type. It was an online blog, kind of an online magazine, and a company came in and made you an offer for it.
Yeah, so basically, so Entrepreneur Express, like the best way to think about it is kind of like Business Insider, entrepreneur.com. I was passionate about business, and my whole thing was like, can I build a business where it's all about learning how to build a business? So I got, through my youth and through some jinxing my way through things, I was able to, land interviews with people like Richard Branson, James Caan, Alan Sugar, like all these people for the magazine. And my idea was to actually have like a physical magazine and then also an online magazine. But then I realized too late that the offline version would not make sense because I just couldn't sell enough advertising. I kind of just realized late on, it was like, oh crap, I actually have to sell a lot of ads into this physical thing a bit too late. And I was trying to call up advertisers, didn't quite work. So then I focused all my energy on the online version. And by focusing all my energy on the online version, I was trying to drive traffic through it. And then I realized, I was like, hang on, I'm trying SEO, I'm trying Google ads and all that stuff, but the skill that I needed, so I'm 27 now, so this was like 10 years ago. Like the skill that I needed was I needed a ton of skill. So SEO would take too long. Google Ads was still very much something which I was like, there's no way I'm going to be able to get hundreds of thousands of people to come to my site by just like outspending the nearest competitor. And so what I ended up doing was I just learned how to be very good at growing big Facebook pages. And, like, I was in the same group of people as the guys who started Lad Bible, for example,
Interesting.
Which is now gone public. I think it's currently got like 300 million or something. Like, we were all in there, like, shouting out each other's pages. If you shout me out.
So hang on, just for context, what year are we talking here?
So this was 10 years ago. So,
or 2012.
Yeah, 2012.
And you're just because I know people, because we're like 100 miles per hour already into this. So let's just back because I know people are going to be wondering. People are reading between the lines. So you're 27 years old, and you're from South London. But I want you to just walk us back because it's easy to go into a story and like life's good, and you're like you're running 100 miles per hour. And when I was speaking to you on the phone, I said to you, this all sounds like TechCrunch, and like a lot of our audience are like, yeah, do you know what? This sounds too advanced for me. I want to just bring us back to the story in between. Okay?
Yeah.
So where were you born? Where did you grow up? Yeah. Just take us back 10 years even before. And just tell us about your journey.
Stuff. So 10 years before, I was 7 and I was in Ghana. So I was actually born here. I was born in Hackney.
Woohoo! Mary's born and bred in Hackney. Yeah.
Which hospital?
Mothers.
Oh, okay.
Mothers.
No.
It probably closed down by the time you were born.
It's called Homerton Hospital now, isn't it?
No.
Oh, it's just
I was born in Homerton Hospital. But then just before my first birthday, I basically got sent to go and live with my grandma in Ghana. And so I lived there from 0 to 10 years old, and then I came here in year 6. And yeah, it was great. It was very much an eye-opener because so the reason it was an eye-opener was because, and I think that we said this on the phone, was that like in Ghana, the education system, the stuff that you learn here in year 6, you've learned that in year 4.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, every single thing they were asking was just like, well...
You already knew it.
Yeah, like...
You were 2 years ahead.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that actually lasted probably until, like, year 8. Like, there were just things that we learned in year 5. But I think mentally that was quite a pivotal point for me because it kind of made me, like, really value, like... knowing more than the next person. So I think that's something that I've used just generally in my life is like, well, actually, if you can know more about just stuff than the next person, if you're always like 2 steps ahead of the next person, like every test I did was just like 100%. But it was also because it was like, I already knew this stuff
you had
2 years ago, you know? So I've always actually tried to use that sort of principle quite a bit.
So have you grown up, are your parents wealthy? That's kind of what I'm trying to
No.
Have you come from money?
Like, no.
Because it's easy for people to hear, like, I've created this, I've done this, and for you to think, this guy, he probably inherited money. So I want to like call a spade a spade.
It's so mad that people think that because like, it's like, no.
Because you sold a business at 17 for 6 figures.
Yeah, but
that's mind-blowing.
Yeah, but that's, I think that was a combination of just like being at the right place, right time. And also, like, I mean, this would sound so but the more you grow a business, the more you realize that, you know, like even at Fanbites now, there are people who are like brands are spending 6 figures on a campaign with us.
Yeah.
So for someone to buy a whole company, it's just like, well, okay, you know, like that's easy. But no, I don't come from. So I grew up with my dad, and we grew up on the 4th floor of an estate on Oaken Road. Moby House estate. So definitely know he worked for the council. So yeah, there was absolutely no.
There's no money.
Zero.
There's no like, I'm going to inject 100K into your business to get you started.
Nah. That's the thing that like,
So Timo, I'm going to just ask you what everyone's probably thinking, right? you're a 27-year-old, and like, you know, you're not bad looking, and you've got you know, you've got a business that's done fabulously well, and if I'm taking a guess, you're definitely worth at least 7 figures, right? Like, how's that life? Like, just, you know, I kind of want you to speak to that. Like, what's that life like? Do you feel a lot of pressure? You know, like, do you wake up feeling like, I just want to splurge, like, I want to just go online. I should go online and buy whatever I want. Yeah. Like, what happens? Like, just tell people. And how does that differ to the world where you've come from, like, growing up and stuff? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah.
So, good question. So I thought, when I was younger, I thought that when I achieved like a certain thing, like net worth, money in my account, that my whole life would change, that I'd be like radically different, etc. And I always used to hear people say, you know, like, it's not about the money, etc. Like, well, of course it's easy for you to say. And I also disagree with the whole thing that like money doesn't make you happy. I very disagree with that. I am significantly happier, like so much happier, like so much. Tell us, yeah. Because I am so much happier where I am now than where I was. But in terms of life being different, it's absolutely not different. I genuinely thought that it would be. I thought it'd be like, whoa, like, yeah.
So you haven't come on the radar of so many more girls, like. I know you've got a girlfriend. So you're not suddenly like, you know, many more people going, wow, this TIMO guy, man, we need to like hit
so the thing is, I mean, actually, I'll tell you the difference is that like I spend more on two types of things. So I spend more on like everyday things, but just like a bit fancier.
Okay.
So for example, yesterday is actually a very good example. I went to a friend's dinner. There were no Uber X's. Sorry, there were no Ubers. So I took like Uber Deluxe, right?
Uber Deluxe?
Something like that. Basically the like most premium thing. And I was picked up in like a Tesla, and it's like, ooh, that's cool, right?
Okay.
Or like, for example, I buy more salmon.
Okay.
Just like things like that.
Okay.
And I just spend a lot more on experiences. So I'm very good at axe throwing. Actually, later on today, I'm taking a friend out axe throwing. So if you see this, James, this is a video. I'm taking an axe throwing and I'm paying for it. Like I love spending on those type of experiences, but I don't think it's changing anyway. I don't think it's changing anyway, and I think I was disappointed. Like I was, because I thought like when you do it and you know like build a business, etc. You know, there will be, I don't know, like you'd walk around with a T-shirt that says like I'm rich. You know, you know, like something like that.
So essentially, what you're saying, if I had to summarize it in a way, is that you've got security, you've got a level of security as a result of building a business, and that created some wealth for you. But as an individual, you're not different. Like you're still the same person. You're doing some fun things, and you're spending a bit more on quality things. But beyond that, you're still very much the same.
Grounded.
Just tell people, what is Fanbytes? Because we don't know. I know, but like these guys don't know. What is Fanbytes? What does it do?
So what Fanbytes is, we built a platform for brands to run influencer campaigns, primarily targeted at Gen Z. So brands like McDonald's, Deliveroo, Samsung, we actually led all the messaging for the government around COVID. So we helped them to run campaigns on YouTube, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. So that's the real reason why brands come to us. And it's been a journey.
And just to spell out the obvious, how does a business like Fanbytes actually make money? As you said, it makes more than 10 million. So, So how does that money come about?
Just vibes. So brands pay us for our service. So they pay us like an agency fee. We have retained clients and all that stuff. So they pay us for our service and to use our technology and everything else.
So what inspired you to get started with Fanbytes?
So 2 things. What inspired me to get started with Fanbytes is kind of different to what inspired me to get started in business in general.
Okay.
In business in general, my number one thing was I wanted to make money. Like, I feel like right now, especially in the whole business world, there's this almost like, solve a problem or like do it for the betterment of society. And I'm like, no, like we are here to make peace. And so,
do you know what? This is so interesting.
100% real.
This is so interesting. Why do you think you're able to call a spade as it is? You're literally able to say, I want to make some peace. Yeah. That's why I'm here.
So I think that that was the forcing function for like my first and second business. And I say actually at the beginning of Fanbytes, that was also my forcing function until like 2 years in. I grew up realizing what money could do. But also, and I don't think I've ever like said this before, but like I've always thought that I was smarter than other people. And I think that it came from my time, coming from Ghana, etc. And so I've always been like, well, like this other person has figured out how to build a business and do this and do that. Well, let me just do what they did and just do it better. And so
I love that.
It actually became kind of a combination of I don't like being poor. And then B,
can say that again.
And then B, it was almost like, well, I'm pretty sure this is not like as difficult because someone else has done it. So why would I not spend my time also doing that? And then I kind of changed. I'll say like after the second year of Fanbytes, I think it actually, after our second year of Fanbytes, so in our first year we made something like, I don't know, 400 grand or something. And then in our second year was when we broke 1 million. And I remember then thinking, oh, actually, like this is not about the money per se. This is just about like winning. Like it's about like doing the best work, being the best people, etc.
So thank you for explaining that. And by the way, those numbers are crazy, hitting like 400k in your first year and 1 million in second. I kind of want to know what the inflection point was when you knew that this thing could become a big business. Like what was it that made you think? Because a lot of people watching, right, have ideas. Like everyone has ideas. You go online, you watch a video. Here's 50 ideas. Like so how do you go from this is an idea to this idea could become a business that makes 7, 8 figures and so on? Do you want to just speak to that?
It's a good question. So I think it was when I realized how fast the market was growing. So what I mean, so even now when I invest in different companies, what I try and do is almost like add these 3 things, which is like the idea, which is more like the product, the team, and the market. Okay. And I think that the biggest thing that would almost like take you to the next level is like, is the market right? Like, is the market ready? And I think in 2018, when we saw, like everyone started to wake up to this idea of, actually, like people like yourselves, like YouTubers actually could be a viable option to market the products, like Instagrammers, like, so, okay. It feels like the market is just growing quicker and quicker and quicker. Right. So I knew we had the right team, and because we were part of that audience, we had tech people, we had good salespeople. So I was like, okay, that ticks the box. Product, I knew that the product was good and our campaigns and our tech and everything was good. But when I just saw like the market growing so fast, and also just like how easy it was for us to, quote unquote, how like easy it was for us to like raise money from investors. I was like, oh, actually, okay, that's interesting. So investors are willing to back this. The market is growing quite quickly and is going to be big. So like, by definition, there has to be a company in that space. So why not us?
Absolutely.
Okay. Usually everybody talks about the successes they've had. Like, what sacrifices have you actually made to start this business?
So the first, So one thing that we didn't talk about was that, so I went to university. I went to Warwick, and I'd say that I lived a very like unconventional student life.
Right.
So that was definitely one. Like, I even talked to my friends at uni, and they'll be talking about something, and I'd be like, I don't even know what you're talking about, because I was never really at uni. I think it's something like even in my third year, because in my third year, I was probably on the verge of being kicked out about 3 times. Because basically, I just didn't go to lectures. I didn't go to seminars because I was always coming to exactly.
Okay.
So I was always coming down to London for meetings, etc.
Right.
Funny enough, so here's a really funny story. So we were invested in a company called Founders Factory. For those who don't know what it is, it's like it's kind of like Y Combinator but for the UK. And it was when I was still in university. But they didn't know. And my main concern was like, if they knew, they would be like, oh, you're not fully committed, blah, blah. Yeah. So I'd spend like 3 to 4 days a week, like doing the program. And then maybe on like the random off day, I'll then go back to Warwick, do a quick seminar, and then come back. And it's so funny that it's only a year ago, after there was some PR about us, that Brent was like, wait, so you did the program and So I think that's definitely one about sacrifices of just living a bit more of like a conventional student life.
So you weren't partying or anything like that, or going to all the house parties, clubs? Okay.
I wasn't. I wasn't. But I think like for most entrepreneurs, I think that's the biggest thing that they sacrifice, because I don't have a family or kids, so it's not as if I'm like sacrificing that. It's like sacrificing the time to do the comfortable things.
Right.
That to me like is always the biggest sacrifice, basically.
Awesome. So Fanbytes, it's bringing in, it's generating a lot of income. How much did it actually cost you to get it started, and how did you raise that money?
How much did it cost us? So I used a bit of the money from the business I sold. That's such a good question. I've never actually had someone ask me that question. But yeah, because like the only thing we're paying for at the beginning was just to pay for the tech. Like we didn't have a technical person at the beginning, and so we were just paying a bit to use like outsourced tech, which was a terrible idea. Yeah, we were hiring like developers from like India and all those places. And you think they're doing a good job, and then something random breaks and something random there, and you're just like, oh my god, this is terrible. So that's why we then got on a CTO as well, and raised money. But I'd say about like all in over some time, put it in a bit. I'd say probably even $5,000 to be honest. Like it wasn't that much to begin it.
What have you enjoyed the most about running your own business? You're 27, man. I feel a lot of people they haven't even started their careers at 27.
What I enjoy the most.
But you've like built a business, you've built multiple businesses. You're in this place now where like I'm going to talk about money in a bit, but like you've done really well as a 27-year-old. Yeah. What do you enjoy the most about like what you do?
What do I enjoy the most? So I'll tell you something. So I think with every business owner, and this is probably like 90% of them, at least based on my experiences, is they really love the creation process and the starting process, and they really hate the operating process. And personally for me, that has been one of the things so I really like when we're creating new things. So, in 2020, we launched something called the Byte House, where we got like six TikTok stars to live in a house and create content. And it just caught every press, like every Sky, like Channel 4, BBC, or like everyone was talking about it. Vice, BuzzFeed, like everyone's talking about it, and then that also brought in some brands. Like that project to me, like starting off was just like wow, like this is so amazing. So I really like the creation process, and now we have a team of people who operate and do the day-to-day, like a great team of people who do that. That's definitely one. The second thing is actually, so that inflection point I told you in the second year where it moved from let's just make a bunch of money to how do we really win and compete. I think that I really just like the competition of it all. Just like just being in there and like winning the deal and doing all that stuff. And then the final thing for me would actually be the opportunity for like to just gain more skills. So
so important.
Exactly. Like to just gain more skills. In the last, I do a lot of public speaking. I've done TED Talk, I've been on BBC, I've been on Bloomberg, and it's all like just talking about things.
You're developing as you're doing.
Exactly. And I think business is, I was going to say possibly, but like business is the fastest personal development course you could ever go on, right? In 5 years, I've had to learn how to like raise millions from people, to hire a team, to fire a team, to do sales, to do marketing, like to understand this part of the business. And it's just been so condensed. And maybe that may have taken me, I don't know, like tens of years in order to do that. I've just like condensed it into
Wow. All right, so imagine like a lot of our audience are millennials, a lot of them are, got people who are older, obviously, and people who are even younger, Gen Zs. And I wonder if you had to offer some form of advice to people and say, well, actually, what sort of skills do you think people should be focusing on? Skills that will help them keep earning more in the future, things that will keep them, with all the way the world's changing and the direction the world's changing. What would you say to that?
So I think that probably the biggest skill that I think in the 21st century is the ability to like gain and maintain attention of something. So what I mean by that is, for example, brands pay us because we understand how to market things to an audience and like get them to buy things, right? And so
I see where you're going.
right? But I think even more than optimizing for money, if you are able to understand how to like get attention to anything, you would never ever be in lack.
You never be broke.
Like ever. Like you can, because think about this, right? Every business, everyone needs to be able to like sell something and do some kind of transaction. If you understand whether it's like you are marketing yourself, or whether you are saying like, I understand how to get this person's like attention for this product, because if you really think about it, the best skill you could ever have is the ability to help other people make money. That's actually like the best skill you can have.
Powerful.
Even if you thought about like the business people, like let's look at, I don't know, someone like Tony Robbins, right? I don't know why he came in my head, but him, right? If you think about Tony Robbins, yes, he's like motivating people and empowering people, but like he's also working with really top class CEOs to get them to be on their A game so they can make more money, right? So like everything kind of circles back to like, can you help me
have more upside?
And then I can capture value of that upside.
We've talked about this at length on our channel, and it's just good to have somebody else come as a guest and actually almost repeat of what we've been teaching and the message we've been putting out there.
So tell us, what would you say are the 3 most important tools that you use to run and market your business?
If you want more tools, okay. So like specific tools
that you could recommend to people who are maybe wanting to create their own businesses, but
think about all the many hats you wear. You're talking about managing staff, recruiting, hiring, firing,
marketing.
I don't do any. So lucky enough, I don't do any of the like.
You've delegated.
So really, most of my time is spent kind of thinking about things which are more advanced. But having said that, so obviously there's like things like Slack and all that stuff. But I think if I'm being honest, the best tool anyone could use is Upwork.
Okay.
Upwork, Fiverr, all these like freelance places.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think that, especially at the beginning of your journey, one of the biggest things that I've always seen is like people say, I don't know how to do X, or I don't have the money to do X.
Yeah.
And I find it to be just a mad excuse because I'm always thinking, well, there is something that you could do. There is someone out there in the world who has the skills.
Yeah.
And this is actually something that, just a quick segue from this. This is actually something that I've changed my whole perspective of, which is when you're trying to do something, focusing on not the what or the how, but the who.
There's a book about this.
Yeah, by Dan Sullivan.
Right.
Fanbase is my main business, but I'm also a co-founder and co-founding investor in about, I want to say about 6 to 8 different companies.
Right.
And in all of them, it's just like, I've come in and said, you're really good at this thing. I'm going to then back you, or I'm going to then support in this way. And that has just led to crazy leverage. And so I think with Upwork, going back to this too, is like, there's always someone out there who has done it or like done the thing that you want, right? Maybe you're trying to build like an e-commerce business and you need someone who's quite good at Facebook ads, but you could learn Facebook ads, or you could use Upwork to hire someone from the Philippines who's quite good at Facebook ads. And I always use Upwork, Fiverr as my tool to make like really quick tests. So just like, okay, do I think this could work? Let me put it on Upwork, pay someone like £100 or something, build it out. Okay, that's good. Didn't work, move on.
Brilliant.
And many people can relate to £100.
Yeah.
Because they spend it on takeaways.
Yeah.
You know, so but you're thinking about how can I use it to experiment and see what results I get, which I think is fascinating. What would you, although I can read in between the lines and I know my own answer to the question I'm about to ask you, what would you say is the secret to your success? If you had to spell it out. Because now, look, let's be real, right? You're a black guy in London.
Yeah.
Right? You spent a decade in Ghana. You've come back to the UK. You went to university like most people. Went to a very good university. Went to Warwick, but whilst you're at uni, you launched a business that's worth 8 figures, right? And you're still 27, having fun. You haven't got kids. You're just like you can do whatever you want, right? That's unusual. Right? Yeah. Now, you might not think it is, but it is, being real. So what would you say, if you had to like just articulate it, is the secret to the success you've had so far?
So I think it's a couple of things. So the first thing is that I think that I just have an insane amount of like self-belief.
Okay.
But it's just this idea that I go, well, someone has done it before. So, for example, one of the most pivotal times of my whole life was actually when I was like 17, 18. And I read this blog. I just randomly came across this blog called Retire 21. And I just obsessively read that blog because it was all these like random people who at 19 started this app and did this thing, and then they sold it for 10 million and like 50 million. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on?
Exactly.
This guy called Saeed Balki, he was actually on it. He ran a company called WP Beginner. It was for WordPress.
I know that.
Like that business is probably this year making like 80 million.
Wow.
And Saeed, from what I remember, so he's 28, I'd say now.
Wow.
And so I think when it kind of comes to, I think by that, I just almost was like, well, it's obvious this can be done. And there was very much an attitude of, well, why not me, right? Because like, it's not as if, you mentioned, being a young black guy. And this may be controversial. Who knows?
Go on, let's hear it.
But like, I've never seen like being black as a disadvantage at all. But I've also never seen it as an advantage. I've just seen it as like,
you're just TIMO. You're just doing your thing.
Yeah, like that's it, right? Funny enough, actually, do you remember when? So I don't know if you had that talk, but you know that I did that talk at YouTube.
Yeah, I was there. Yeah.
And it was about YouTube Shorts, etc.
Yeah.
And I showed some case studies and all that stuff. And then someone came up to me and said, like those case studies were great, etc. But I noticed there weren't any like black creators in there. So how would black creators be able to do the things that you just said? And I said, well, like I've just shown you how to play the algorithm. Like just do it. Yeah. And I think like that never like did anything to me, right? So I'd say the first thing is that self-belief. Like just almost, well, it's been done by someone else. Right. Therefore, why don't I do it?
Yeah.
That has definitely been the main one. And then I think the second one has actually just been just being very insanely curious. So, you know, raising money from investors. It's like, well, how do you do that? Well, A, it's been done by someone else.
Yeah.
B, how has it been done by someone else? And so just being very curious and like poking around at things. It helps also when you don't have much risk in your life.
True.
You know, like selling my prior business, eventually whatever happens to Fanby, it's like the downside risk is very, very low. At least from my perspective. It is very, very low. Especially people from the ends and stuff. Like, you know, I grew up like Oaken Road, Council Estate, next Peckham, like so many of my friends or like people who I went to school with. So I went to school City of London Academy. So like that's in Bermondsey. Like so many of them, you know, went the other path, etc. But the thing that I always think about, you know, sometimes I like randomly bump into them if I ever go back for just something, I don't know. And they'll be like, man, you know, that thing you did was quite risky. And I always think like people almost, because people don't think of themselves as like being able to do it because they haven't seen it being done. It then feels like, oh my God, how do you do this? But I think if you almost make that the norm around you, and the way I did that was just by, like reading these publications and like almost be like, well, duh, of course this has to happen. I always knew I would be financially successful by
before 30.
Way before. But I think it's because I was like, well, other people have done it. So like, why not me?
You can figure it out.
You know.
You know, the point you made about like people not seeing. This is partly why I wanted us to interview you, actually, because like I think it's very important for people. We always talk about this idea of looking for evidence of success, whatever you define success as. You know, I know we all have different definitions, but like I always think it's a very good idea to always seek out people who've done things and like actually hear from them, because like using your approach, like you're looking for like someone's done it. Well, how did they go about doing it? Who's that person and how did they go about doing it? I wanted you to speak to something you said about self-belief. Where do you think that self-belief comes from?
It's a good question. So I think part of it is, you know, I don't have any brothers or sisters, right? So I think there was this idea of, well, it's kind of down to me. So, like, you know,
there's no one coming to save you.
You know, there's no one coming to save you. I also think the fact that I have, in fact, actually at home, I have my diary, and what I do is, anytime I have like a very small win, I will document it. And so, for example, you know, so I did a talk last week, which was to like 10,000 people.
Wow.
And, or, you know, for example, and I guess I can share this now, but in February, I'm doing a talk with Sheryl Sandberg, right? And I would have thought, you know, part of me would have gone like, ooh, Sheryl Sandberg, etc. But actually, at that point, when the invite came in, I was like, ooh, okay, Sheryl Sandberg, interesting. And I felt a bit like, am I really sure, etc. But what I think was good was over time, and this is something that I'd say to a lot of people, like over time, you want to almost have a bank of very small wins, which can then build on top of each other. There's a video actually on YouTube. I actually haven't watched it because I just get so cringe about it. But it was my first ever speaking thing I did. It was when I was like 15. It was when I was in school. I was wearing my school uniform and I was talking about like the power of a smile or something. And it was like 80 people in the audience, right? And then, but just that small win, then I was like, okay, I can now talk to like 200 people.
Wow.
I can now talk to like 400 people.
Wow.
Similarly, you know, people think that with Fanbytes, it was like the first ever like sale we got was 100 grand, 200 grand. First ever sale we got was to Go Ape. And it was £350.
Right.
And I remember calling Ambrose like, yo, bro, 350 racks, right? This is it. We're just going to sell £1,350,000 campaign. But what it was like, that then gave me the sense of, okay, well, someone bought this for 350.
Yeah.
Let's now see what happens someone, if we say it's £1,000.
Right.
Now, if we say it's £2,000.
Right.
And just like those small wins, even when I was doing fundraising, it was like, again, small wins, get someone to commit a bit. You go, hang on, like 50 grand from an investor, actually, it's not that much. So how about if the next time, like knowing how we got to the 50 grand, let's now, edge it up. Let's now say, okay, well, we won 100 grand now. And then just keep doing that and keep doing that. So like having this bank of small wins was one of the biggest ways that I think I created that sense of self-belief.
When did you start developing or, going through that process of actually noting down your small wins? Have you always been doing that? Or
I started this in my first year of Fanbytes because actually that was when I had a big feeling of, I won't say like imposter syndrome, because I don't think that I've ever had that, but just this feeling of, well, like there's a lot to learn here and there's a lot to do. Am I sure that I can learn it in the time that I need to? Because I had / have a goal with Fanbytes. And yeah, so that was the big challenge. And so like that's when I just started documenting them. And it wasn't anything. It was like, like beforehand I was like a chubby guy and now I'm not chubby. and the small wins I documented was, okay, I've lost X amount, I've lost this, I did X number of reps, like all that type of thing. It all started, I say, like the first year of Fanbytes.
What would you say are the most challenging aspects of running your business at the moment?
So yeah, this is a very easy question because it always comes down to people and the team that you create. Okay. So I think that I struggled, and I think I still struggle to some degree, but not as much, with almost realizing that that the company now, when I'm thinking about making a decision, etc., it like impacts the company.
Right.
So whereas with me, you could just, I'll take like 5 people and we'll go, right? And we'll just do things so fast, so quick, etc.
Yeah.
Realizing that actually, as a whole, like when we're changing strategies, changing that it takes a bit longer. Just that whole journey has actually been. I think I've got it now and I've done better at it, but I still think there's some work to do on that. The second one is actually doubling down on my strengths. Okay. And not really focusing on my weaknesses as much. Interesting. And I think for a while I was trying to be too much of like an all-rounder.
Right. Like wear many hats.
Yeah. And then I realized, well, look, there are a few things I'm very good at. I'm good at marketing, I'm good at sales, I'm good at public speaking. Like zero in on that and don't try and get involved in like the people function. Like when you came, you saw Emma, who's our head of people. She's great, gets that job done. I'm just like, okay, cool, sorted. Operations and all that stuff, that's all taken care of. But I think that was really the most important thing. There's a final one, which I think is probably the one most relatable to your audience, which is managing your own psyche. So I think that the big thing was like, when you are running a business, you don't know what you don't know. Yeah. And so you wake up to very random problems and you go, how on earth do I solve this? And this idea of realizing that even if something goes wrong in your business, that doesn't mean like something's wrong with you. Yes. And I think that I had that thing, I'll say for the first 3 years, I had this thing where if the business wasn't doing well at a certain point, I would just feel so frustrated, so down, so everything.
So you couldn't separate yourself from the business.
Exactly.
Wow,
You know,
that's so interesting.
part of that comes because we did a lot of, you know, a lot of our PR and stuff has been about like me and my journey, etc. But it got to a point where I remember speaking to a coach of mine and just saying, this is ridiculous, because he saw me come to a meeting just a bit and I was like, oh, it's all fine, etc. And then he said, oh, so how's the business doing? I said, oh yeah, well, this thing's happening. And then he just paused and he was just like, do you realize that last week when you guys were on a high, you came in like, let's go. And do you realize now you're down, but you're still saying everything is fine, but it's not. So I think that was actually the important thing, was almost like seeing the business as a separate entity to me.
Wow. Okay.
Because too much of the stuff, you know, we're talking about TechCrunch and all that stuff. So many of these investors, and this is a thing to like everyone listening, a lot of your, you know, if you raise money or blah, 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 a lot of people would describe your business as your baby. That is the biggest bullshit ever. Anyone who says that, like, you know, this business is my baby, etc., like, no, it's not. What it is it's an entity, and it's like a system.
It's a system.
Yeah,
love it.
Right.
Okay.
It's a system independent of you, and you're tinkering around with how to make the machine work.
Independent.
Whereas people say like, it's your baby, and I go, no, it's not.
Wow. Which means that for you to be doing that, like, you've had to eject yourself from like the daily, the daily things.
Exactly. And that's meant we've had to hire very good people. And you know, that has really been the case. We've hired good people. They do the stuff. They do the job. You set good metrics for everyone to hit. But to be honest, we only started really hiring like really solid like management teams probably in the last 18 months or so.
Right. Okay. Which coincided with COVID. I'm guessing with lots changing. By the way, slightly different question. How did things change with COVID?
Oh, COVID helped us.
Okay. Speak to that. Just give us some color.
Because you know, so on average, every year, Fanbytes has grown like 130%, like every single year.
Every year.
Wow. Minimum. You know, COVID helped because a lot more people were online.
Right.
Brands wanted to reach those people online. Yeah. Fanbytes was here.
Yeah. So if you had to start this business all over again,
as in
Fanbytes. Okay. I know you're doing other things. If you did have to start all over again, what would you do differently?
I would instantly hire people who could day-to-day run the business.
Wow.
And I'd do that in the first 6 months. As in, I would hire people, and I would say like, my aim for you is to be the day-to-day person of the business.
Right.
As in like operationally in there, doing all this stuff.
Yeah.
Or straight away, you know, hire a team of people. Obviously, this isn't something everyone can do because that requires funds, etc. But like, I would straight away start off with getting people who I was very razor clear on that, because I think that there is a world in which someone can both be the founder and the CEO, but like not tactically operating because they're able to play to the thing that they're uniquely good at.
Right.
So for example, in the first year, it's kind of taken us 4 years to do this, but like if in the first year we had the setup of, we said, okay, these are people, over time we want you to do the day-to-day of it. You're going to run sales, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. And I would then do like the other stuff, the stuff around strategic building, etc. One of my good friends actually has this whole philosophy, which is like, be the founder and not the CEO.
Interesting.
Because I feel like a lot of people get those two things. They go like, I'm the founder, therefore I have to be the person. CEO. You know. And if you actually look, this is actually something that I've as you get more successful, you end up, talking to, I have a friend who's worth probably like 200 million or something like that.
Wow.
And one of the things he said is that the value that you get as an entrepreneur is by owning the business. It's not by running the business.
Yes, ownership.
And, he sold a bunch of companies. His last company was sold, for like, I think 186 or something. And one of the things he always said was like, the next things he would keep doing are to be the founder and not the CEO.
Right.
So that would have been instantly the first thing I would have done, would have been like, hire people and say, day to day, I want you to own it. Second thing would have been focus on a niche a bit more.
Right.
So we started off, and we did focus on like music as a niche. But I think so we focused on music as a niche in our second year, which was when we did $1 million. In our first year, we focused on like mobile apps and stuff.
Right.
But I always thought, like now with the benefit of hindsight, I go, if we'd been even more razor focused on mobile apps, I reckon that year we'd have made $1 million. And then subsequently grew and grew and grew and grew.
So niche down.
Really niche down. Yeah. Too many people build stuff and think that, too many people build stuff and then think their audience is everyone.
Yeah.
And I've always said, well, that's like, if your audience is everyone, then your audience is no one.
Exactly.
So if you can like really niche down, like, almost get to the point where everyone in that particular community or that network, like, knows about you and no one else outside of that does. That's when you know that you've nailed it. Like,
you've nailed it.
One of our big breakthroughs was really focusing on music, and we just worked with like Sony a lot, and then we PR the fact that we work with them, and then Warner will come along.
Interesting.
And then
that FOMO.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh, so what's happening? And here's the cool thing. When Warner come along, because it's driven by FOMO, the same thing you did from Sony, you charge double.
Whew.
And then Universal come along, and then the same thing I did for those two, you now charge triple. Because they're not driven, like, because when those next people come, they're driven by FOMO.
Yeah.
Like, and they're driven because the senior marketing person is being told by the CEO, why are we flopping against Sony?
Yeah.
So now they have to do something in order to beat Sony or to say that we do the same thing. So they're prepared to pay more.
Wow.
So that's the value you get from like really niching down and really like owning the space.
Wow, that's so powerful.
Awesome. Okay, so if somebody wanted to start a side hustle from scratch today, how would you recommend that they go through the process step by step?
So the first thing is what type of business I'd go into.
Yeah.
So if the idea is that it's going to replace your existing income, it's going to amplify it even more, then you probably don't want to be in a business where you're still like renting out your time.
Right.
So, because I think, people sometimes go into coaching businesses, etc., and that's cool, but you're still using your time, but it's just at a higher value.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? It's just rather than you being paid a salary, you're able to say, okay, I would charge £500 an hour or like $2,000 an hour. I don't know how much that is. So I would instantly think about the type of business, and I'd try and either focus on like, something scalable, right? So e-commerce or just online courses or something like that.
So basically product-based businesses.
Or like info-based products.
Yeah. Or content-based businesses is what you're saying. Right. Okay.
And the reason why is because you want to have scale.
Yes.
So that's the first one. The second thing is I'll pick a very, very small market.
Okay.
Like very small market. And then the third thing is I would pick a market. This is so critical. I will pick a market where there is already latent demand.
Okay.
Like there has to already be a demand.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I tell like people, so my sales team, is that you want to focus on somewhere where like if you go and play in water, you're gonna get wet, right? So you want to play in a field where like people are already spending, people are already doing stuff there, and then you just come in with your product to say, well, like mine is a bit better, mine is faster, mine is cheaper, you know, mine helps you do something slightly different, but you're already spending. So those would be the three things that I would say, just from like thinking about a business perspective. Make it something that has some sort of leverage in it, so like product based or content based. Focus on a very small market, and then focus on a market where you know people are already spending. One of the things I see a lot of people get wrong with this is that they follow their passion.
Okay.
I think that can get to a stage where you follow your passion, but you don't follow your market, right? So you don't like follow and you go, okay, you know, here's where the market could be, etc. You just think, I'm passionate about this, therefore people should buy this.
Right.
And I see that a lot with people like building those type of things, and it never quite takes off because they're almost not, because they're ignoring the realities of the market, which is like, maybe you can get a fair amount of people to spend with you, but if you want this to, you know, like scale a lot, then you need something where there's already like existing demand and people are already doing it. And then probably, the final thing would be figure out a way then to like tap into that demand. So here's a good example. If I was, you know, if I was thinking about this, and let's say I wanted something that made 100 grand a year, right? So what's that per month? Like 8,000?
8,333.
Yeah, there you go. 8,333. I would do something in like e-commerce or something. And then I would actually go and figure out on platforms like Etsy, I would see who's already best selling. Or
interesting.
There's some apps. There's an app called Orbello. It's Orbello is like a drop shipping e-commerce app. There's also another app called Jungle Scout, which will actually which would tell you FBA, which would tell you what are the most popular products on Amazon, etc. And then I'd go, okay, cool. So if I know there's their best sellers, etc., then I know people are already buying it because by definition they're best sellers. I know how to get the distribution because I can see like people are buying it on Etsy, so therefore I can create an Etsy store. Like people are buying Amazon. And then what I then focus is then go on a niche market. So I might take that exact same product and just say, okay, like now it's for moms, right? And I might just like change something very small about it. And cool, that's for moms. Or I have a friend who does this and like makes so much money on courses. The exact same course, right? But then he will add something on it. Like, so it is. So let's say it's like a personal development course or something like that, right? You might then add in an extra part of the course, which is like, this is now for working mothers.
Right.
Exact same thing, and all you do is just add in some extra modules in there. And then now you just target working mothers. Or you know, this is personal development for people who have just entered the workforce. So you've just finished your first job, your first entry into the market, and you're looking to build out your career. And then maybe I'll add a few modules about, you know, just kind of tweaks it to them. Exact same course.
Same product, just tailoring it slightly towards a different audience.
Exactly, for working moms, for stressed out dads, for ex-CEOs, for athletes, for entrepreneurial people, for, you know, like for bookkeepers. There you go, right? Like that type of thing where I'm saying like focus on a small market, because you don't need that many people to buy something for you, from you, in order to make 100 grand a year. Like you don't need that many people, because the world has billions. Like there's a ton of people in the world. And if you make it online, you can sell anywhere, which therefore means that like your exposure is even crazier.
Yeah.
Which is the reason why I hate businesses where you're like, where it's quite localized.
Yeah.
You've just created like a high paying job for yourself.
Yes.
You know?
That's so true. This is another reason why we talk about this online stuff so much, because we've just realized the internet gives you leverage, right? The internet just offers like this additional power. And to your point, 1,000 people pay £100, that's £100,000, you know, in a year. And so that's entirely possible. Thank you for just breaking it down like that, just helping people just really understand the mindset for this, you know. And I think the thing, Mary and I would love to really communicate, I guess, through this interview, there's so many gems you've dropped, is that, this stuff is possible.
Yeah.
You know? And just finally, what would you say? Because some people might say, do you know what? You're young, you know, you get the tech. But what about people who are older? Because this is like, seriously, because people either say, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, I'm too old, right? Because we see this. These are all objections that people come up with. So imagine someone says, actually, do you know what? I'm in my late 40s, I'm in my 50s, all this tech stuff, I don't know, you know. What would you say to them?
Do you want my real answer?
Yes.
You're not gonna make it.
Why?
Because in order to get something that you've never had, you have to do stuff that you've never done. So if you just say, I'm too old, as in, like, I am this specific age, and so because I am this specific age, I can't learn new skills, then, like, just that fundamentally is, like, such a problem, because you haven't said you're someone who's open to learning new things.
Yeah.
So let's even say you then were good at social media. Cool. You need to learn new skills on top of that in order for you to build a business. So fundamentally, if you're not fine with like almost like reinventing yourself every single time, then you're just not going to make it. Like it's not, I feel like, you know, maybe there's someone watching this who's in that camp, but I feel like
Many people.
yeah.
Many people.
But I feel like that's a useless excuse. Like that's such a media excuse. It's just like, okay, yeah, cool. Like there you go. Like,
What about
I'm older. All right, well I'm done now. Like, come on.
So what would you say about, you know, hiring people, for example, via Upwork or, you know...
I mean, yeah, cool, fine. But like the point is, I mean, yeah, you could do that and hire people up, etc. I mean, yeah, but if you're in a position where you are trying to find a side income that will eventually replace your job, then like the asset is you. So you could pay out and other stuff, I mean, I guess, but if you're trying to do it to replace your job, I don't presume you have like an abundance of cash, you just like keep paying people from Upwork, etc. So like you have to put in the like you have to put in the hard yards. And I know, you know, it will be an uncomfortable thing for people to hear, but it's kind of like, come on, like
No, but the point you're
there's so
making,
many excuses in the world.
just to really,
So many
let's
excuses.
reframe that, because reframing is very important. So
Okay, fine.
essentially what you're saying is, if you do have the mindset of being open to learning what you need to learn, then you can make it happen potentially.
Yes.
Not guaranteed, you can make it happen potentially, but you do have to be open to learning, because otherwise, like, in your words, you're not going to make it if you don't.
You're not going to make it. This is just one of those things which is like, because I do see this, and you know, like, when I first came across your channel, and I'd be reading the comments, and so many of it would be like, oh, that's good for them, but oh, that's great, but
that's so true.
And I'm just always like, well, come on, no one said that you can't do this. In fact, like this video is showing you how to do it.
Right.
Just do it.
Yeah.
Just do it.
Just do it. In Nike's words, just do it.
Just, like, because people come up with any excuse, and yes, maybe I'm speaking from a position where, okay, yeah, cool, but like, there's so many things. For example, in the advertising and tech world, there's not that many black people, right? In advertising and in tech, I didn't go, well, I didn't know any investors. I didn't know any single person. I would go like, well, I don't know any. So all right, well, there you go. Like, I don't know anything about, like big business and marketing and all that stuff. No, I learned it. Like, I don't understand this whole, like, well, I am like this, therefore I am like this. Like, that's such a scary place to live.
Absolutely.
That's such a good note to end on. Absolutely. It's about that growth. It's about that keep developing, keep growing.
Growth mindset.
Don't let your age or any of those things, the fact that you might not have any money, actually be the thing that stops you from actually figuring stuff out. Timo, this has been incredible. I feel like we've been on a marathon, man. You've just dropped so many bombs, and I love just the fact that you're so real. You just say it how it is, and like, honestly, we're going to be watching out for yours, how things will be progressing from here on. Keep us updated, man.
Absolutely. And if people want to reach out to you or, stay updated with what you're up to next, how can they get in touch?
Follow on Instagram is probably the best way. So it's just my name, Timothy Armoo. Actually, before we go, there's like two things that I love to say about like books that I think
please do. Yes.
Books that I think have been quite useful. So the first one is a book called So Good They Can't Ignore You. It's by a guy called Cal Newport, and it actually talks about this idea. So it says this whole thing about like, don't follow your passion and actually focus on building skills and rare and valuable skills, because the more that you do that, like, that's where you will get your fulfillment from it, is by actually just being better at stuff. It's like being better at skills. That's a very good book. And then probably for me, the most transformational book around like business is actually one by someone wrote it about him. It's a book by Naval Ravikant, and the book is called How to Get Rich Without Getting Lucky. I really like that book. Just really opened my eyes to leverage. And I was just like, wow, now I get it. So those two books I say are like pretty useful, and I think if you haven't read them, I think you haven't given yourself the best shot at like just building something that is like worth talking about.
Wow.
Awesome. We've talked about that book on this channel before. I'm going to link to that video below and above. You guys can check that book out.
As in the first one or the second one?
The Val's book. Book particularly about the point about media leverage.
Code,
tech,
like that. Finance.
So definitely, you guys definitely go and check that video out. But yeah, man, we're going to be linking to all your things, all your socials and stuff like that below. Guys, definitely make sure you head over, follow Timo. He's a super interesting guy. There's going to be so much more success ahead for Timo down the line. Timo, thank you
so much. Thank you for all the value, all the gems that you have just dropped. It has been phenomenal. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Don't forget to hit the like, hit the share, hit the subscribe, and let us know in the comments, guys. What you thought about this interview, what bits of it really resonated for you, what bits really inspired you. Jump in the comments and let us know, guys. As ever, guys, in all things, be thankful and seek joy.
Take care, guys.
Take care, people.
Bye.
Bye.